I'd been working on it for years, this idea that one day, maybe, just maybe, my parents would see me. Not Ethan, not their golden boy, but me. At 30, I was still chasing that recognition like it was a carrot dangling just out of reach. Every achievement of mine felt like a whisper, while Ethan's were fireworks. Growing up, it was always Ethan, the one who could do no wrong. He was the charming one, the athlete, the one who always got the shiny new things, car, gadgets, the attention. Meanwhile, I got a book for my birthday when all I really wanted was something that felt like love. You'd think after all these years I'd stop caring, but there's something about that constant feeling of being second best that sticks with you. It clings to your ribs like you can't shake it off, no matter how hard you try. I'd worked hard to build a life for myself, though no one had really noticed. Freelance graphic design, small but cozy apartment. I'd even renovated it myself. Each little upgrade, every coat of paint, felt like a middle finger to the neglect. I was proud of it. It was mine. But it wasn't just about the apartment. It was about proving I could do it on my own, that I didn't need them to make something of myself. Then came the day when my parents called. Ethan was getting engaged. They were throwing a big party for him, and they invited me too. Of course, I went. There was a part of me that thought, maybe this time they'll finally see me. Maybe this time I'll get something that feels like an acknowledgement. Or, at the very least, a good meal and a chance to see Ethan sweat for once. But deep down, I knew better. When I walked into that engagement party, it was like stepping into a room full of Ethan. The crowd, the decorations, the laughter, it was all about him, the bright, shining golden boy. People swarmed around him like moths to a flame. His fiancée, Sophie, beaming by his side, holding court like she was already part of the family. And me? I was just a shadow in the corner, sipping on a drink I didn't even want, trying to figure out how to make myself invisible enough to avoid small talk. I'd been here before. At every family gathering, I was always the afterthought. Ethan would get the shiny things, the recognition. His birthday presents were always over the top. New bikes, the latest tech gadgets, trips to places I only dreamed of. Me, I got a book. Always a book. A good book, sure, but a book all the same. The practical one. The one who wasn't worth much attention, except when it was to compare me to him. As the night wore on, my parents came over to me. They didn't linger, just a quick hello and a few words that didn't make much of an impact at first. But then Dad mentioned something about my living situation. "You know, Marissa," he said in that tone like he was doing me a favor, "we've been thinking about your place. We've got that vacation property up in the mountains. We've been considering renting it out. Maybe you'd be interested. We can give you a good deal." I tried to hold on to my hope, thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe they're finally seeing me, finally doing something that feels like an upgrade. Yeah, I managed to say, my voice betraying a little more excitement than I intended. Dad gave a shrug. "It's been sitting there for a while, and we don't use it much anymore. You know, the house needs some work, but it's a good deal for you. A step up from what you're paying. At least I should have asked more questions right then. Should have asked how much work the house needed, how much they expected me to fix up before I moved in, how much it would actually cost me. But I didn't. I was desperate for something, anything that felt like recognition, so I nodded, smiled even, and agreed to take a look. That was my mistake. I went up to the property the next day. The drive was long, the kind that drags on and makes you second-guess every turn you make. But I tried to push those doubts away. Maybe it was bad at first, but I could fix it, right? I had experience with renovations. I could turn it into something. I could make it mine, like I always did. When I pulled up, the place didn't look so bad at first. Sure, the roof needed some attention, but that's nothing new. But when I walked inside, I knew. The smell hit me first, musty, like no one had cared about this place in years. The appliances were ancient, covered in grime. The kitchen counters, peeling, water-stained. The wallpaper? A sad shade of yellow that looked like it had faded a decade ago. The floors were scratched and uneven. And the roof, God, the roof, leaked in 3 different places. It was everything I'd feared, and more. It wasn't a step up. It wasn't even a step sideways. It was a step backwards. I stood there in the middle of that sad, cold house, feeling the weight of it all pressed down on me. It was like they didn't care, like I didn't matter enough to even give me something worth putting effort into. I don't know how long I stood there, but eventually I called my parents, told them I'd seen it, that I was willing to move in. I didn't want to. I wanted to scream at them, tell them that I deserved more than this, that they should have given me something worth fighting for, but I didn't. I swallowed it down because that's what I always did. I swallowed the hurt, the anger, the frustration, and just went along with whatever they threw at me. It was easier to take it than to fight back. I moved in a month later. The place was still a wreck, but I wasn't about to let it defeat me. I threw myself into it. The first thing I did was rip out the old kitchen counters. Too many stains, too many years of neglect. I replaced the flooring next. A cheap laminate I could afford, but it looked good. Little by little, the house started to change. Every brushstroke of paint felt like a tiny rebellion. Every new light fixture I installed was a quiet middle finger to everything my parents had ever made me feel. Small, unnoticed, unimportant. It was hard work. The kind that makes your back ache and your fingers bleed, but it was mine. And for the first time in my life, the house felt like it was mine too. No one could take that away from me. I didn't have help, didn't expect it. The few times my parents showed up to check in on their investment, they'd nod and say things like, "Wow, you've really turned this place around." It was a compliment, sure, but it didn't feel real, like they were acknowledging the surface without recognizing the blood, sweat, and tears I'd poured into it. They never offered to help or even ask what I needed. It was always about what I could do for them, as if this house was just another thing to check off their list. Still, I kept at it. I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for me. I thought if I just stuck with it, kept improving, kept hoping, maybe one day they'd see what I'd done and give me what they promised. The house, my future. Some acknowledgement that I wasn't just the backup child. But as the months passed, it started to feel like a dream I couldn't wake up from. I'd saved money here and there, putting away anything I could spare, just in case they finally decided to keep their word. I'd calculated the costs in my head 100 times. How much it would take for me to fix the roof, to install a new bathroom, to make it somewhere I could live comfortably, long term. Maybe they didn't care, but I did. Maybe they didn't see the effort, but I did. It wasn't even about the house anymore. It was about showing them I could make something out of nothing, that I was worthy of being seen. But as the months went on, I began to question myself. Was I chasing a dream that was never going to come true? Was this house, these repairs, just another way for my parents to use me without ever really giving me what I deserved? The more I invested, the more I wondered if I was just wasting my time, fixing something for them that would never be mine. I was 32 now, and I had a steady rhythm to my life. Freelance design work kept me busy, though the hours were unpredictable. Some months I felt flush. Others I was scraping by. But I was stable. I'd worked hard to get here. I was proud of where I'd landed. Small victories stacked on top of each other, even if they came with a lot of frustration along the way. Then one morning, my parents showed up at my door, looking serious in a way I'd never seen before. Their faces were pinched, like they were holding something back, and the air between us felt thick with whatever it was they needed to say. "We need to talk, Marissa," my dad said, his voice lower than usual. My stomach dropped. This wasn't going to be good. I invited them in, and they didn't waste any time. They sat across from me, and I could tell they were nervous. My mom, normally chatty, just fidgeted with the hem of her sweater. Dad, always the one to take charge, cleared his throat. "We've run into some financial trouble with the vacation house," he said, eyes avoiding mine. "We've fallen behind on the mortgage payments, and it's about to go into foreclosure if we don't come up with $30,000 by the end of the month." My stomach tightened, but I didn't say anything. I just stared at him, waiting for him to continue. "We know you've been doing well for yourself," he went on, his tone shifting to something softer, like he was trying to ease into this. "You've worked hard, and you've got the money. We're asking for a loan to help us out, just until we get things straightened out. We'll make it right, Marissa. It'll be yours someday, after we're gone." I could feel my pulse quicken. 30 grand. It wasn't a small amount, not by any stretch. But the idea that the house would eventually be mine, that they'd keep their promise, finally, made my chest tighten in a way I wasn't prepared for. I'd spent years working, scraping together what I could, building my life, saving up for a future that didn't revolve around them. And here they were, asking me for everything they said I'd get when it was all over. My future. My voice caught in my throat for a second, but I pushed it down. "You're sure this is temporary?" I asked, even though I knew I was already leaning toward saying yes. "You're sure you'll pay me back?" "We will," Dad said, his voice a little too firm. "We'll make sure you're taken care of. You'll get the house when we're gone. Just help us now, and everything will be fine." I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek to stop the anger from spilling out. I had the money. I had it sitting in my savings, a cushion I'd built up over the years, just in case something like this came up. My parents were still my parents, and as much as they pissed me off, the idea of them losing everything stung. Maybe this is the test, I told myself. I didn't even question why they didn't ask Ethan. Why didn't they go to him? He had the career, the money, but no, they came to me. Because they knew I'd do it. Because they knew I always did. I sighed, reaching for my phone to start the transfer. "Okay," I said, trying to sound steady, though I felt the weight of the decision already creeping up my spine. "I'll send the money." My dad's face softened, his eyes almost grateful. My mom reached over, squeezing my hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know how much this means to us." As they left, I felt a sick twist in my stomach. It wasn't the gratitude that bothered me. It was the fact that it never felt like I was doing this for myself. Every time they came to me, every time they asked, it was always about them, never about me. Always about what they needed, what they wanted. I should have felt good, like I was helping them, but all I could feel was a sense of dread creeping in. The same dread that had been there all those years, lurking in the background. I'd just given them $30,000, my money, the money I worked for, and for what? So they could get their vacation house back. So they could go on living their life while I stayed in my little corner, just another thing they took for granted. I tried to shake it off. "They'll pay me back," I told myself. "It's just temporary. You'll get the house in the end." But as I sat there, the creeping doubt started to settle in. This wasn't just a loan. It was another way for them to keep me in their grasp. Another promise that would never be kept. Another manipulation. And I didn't know if I could stomach that. The engagement party for Ethan and Sophie was a circus, and I was just another face in the crowd. I tried to fake it, smiling, laughing at the right times, nodding along like everything was fine. But as the night wore on, the same feeling I always got around these people settled into my bones. I didn't belong. Not here, not in this family. The place was buzzing with excitement over Ethan, with Sophie right beside him. Both of them glowing like they were made for this. Every time someone praised Ethan, I felt the room stretch farther away from me. I tried to hide in the corner, nursing my drink, but it didn't matter. The spotlight was always on him. The golden child? The one who had it all handed to him on a silver platter. The one everyone thought was worthy of admiration. Then the moment came. My parents, standing at the front of the room, clinked their glasses to get everyone's attention. My stomach dropped. This was it, the big moment. The moment where I knew, without a doubt, that I wasn't even in the same league as Ethan. "Everyone, we'd like to present a special gift to our son, Ethan," my mom announced, her voice bright with pride. A little something for the happy couple to start their new life together. I watched, frozen, as my dad stepped forward, holding something in his hands, a thick envelope. He handed it to Ethan, his face full of that proud, loving expression I'd seen 1,000 times, always reserved for Ethan. I tried to swallow the bile rising in my throat, but it didn't work. Ethan took the envelope with a grin, his eyes scanning the words inside. And then it hit me. The deed to my apartment. The apartment I had spent years fixing up, painting, working until my hands bled. The one place that had ever felt like home, my home. And they were giving it to Ethan, as a wedding gift. The crowd erupted in applause. They cheered, clapping for Ethan and Sophie. Their faces lit up like they were the ones who'd done the work. Ethan stood there, smiling, his arms around Sophie, thanking everyone, completely unaware of the agony coursing through me. His smile was wide, proud, but he didn't know. He didn't know that what he had just been handed was everything I'd built, everything I'd poured myself into, piece by piece, scrap by scrap. I was invisible. The applause felt like it was happening to someone else. My heart hammered in my chest, and my stomach twisted so hard I could barely breathe. I was suffocating, but I couldn't move. I just stood there, clutching my glass, trying to keep my face neutral as the world spun around me. Ethan didn't see it. Sophie didn't see it. My parents didn't see it. No one saw me. They were too busy celebrating Ethan's new life while I stood there, the person who had done all the work. And all I got was a cold, empty seat in the back of the room. I watched as they hugged, laughing, basking in the glow of this extravagant gift, something that should have been mine. And all I could think was, this is it. This is what they think of me. I felt the walls closing in. I tried to keep my breathing steady, tried to keep my composure, but I could feel the anger bubbling inside me, threatening to spill over. This isn't fair. This isn't how it was supposed to be. But I couldn't say anything. Not in front of everyone. I couldn't disrupt the picture-perfect moment. The image of Ethan as the golden boy with everything handed to him, while I stood there, watching my life get given away to someone else. The worst part? No one even noticed how much it hurt. Ethan didn't get it. Sophie didn't get it. My parents probably didn't even remember what I'd done for that place. All they saw was a transaction, a gift, something to keep the show going. I forced myself to smile, to nod along as if I was part of the celebration, but inside, I was already gone. I couldn't stand another second of it, so I slipped out, unnoticed, just like I always did. I was still standing there, trying to process what had just happened when Aunt Marlene's voice cut through the noise. "So what about Marissa?" she asked, her tone curious but with a hint of judgment. "Why didn't she get anything? She's been living there all this time too. Doesn't she deserve something?" The room seemed to freeze. My heart pounded in my ears, but I couldn't make a sound. I just stood there, rooted to the spot, as my parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Well," my mom said with a light dismissive laugh, "Marissa's been living there for free. So we figured it's time for her to move out." What the hell? I didn't know if I'd heard her right. My mind was still trying to catch up with the words, trying to make sense of what she'd just said. But there was no mistaking it. She was brushing me off, like I hadn't spent every damn cent I had on that apartment, like I hadn't poured my soul into making it a home. I opened my mouth to speak, to say something, anything, but nothing came out. I was frozen. My parents stood there, casual, like they'd just announced they were giving someone a used pair of shoes. It felt like the air in the room sucked all the oxygen out of my lungs, and I could barely breathe. The crowd didn't seem to notice the weight of those words. They were too busy congratulating Ethan and Sophie, still caught up in the glow of their engagement, of the shiny new life they were about to begin. But all I could hear was the echo of my mom's words. "She's been living there for free." I felt my face flush, my vision narrow as if I was sinking into the floor. They thought they'd done enough by letting me stay there, as if living there rent-free wasn't the bare minimum, as if I hadn't put in hours, weeks, months, pouring everything I had into that place. No one had ever bothered to acknowledge that. It was always expected, always taken for granted. Sophie glanced at me then, her eyes soft but pitying. Like she understood, but she didn't. I didn't need her pity. I needed my parents to see me, to understand what I'd sacrificed. I needed them to feel the weight of what they'd just done, but they couldn't even look me in the eye. Instead, they turned their focus back to Ethan, still glowing under the spotlight, laughing, accepting congratulations, as if the applause were for him alone. And I was standing there, invisible in front of everyone I'd ever known. Just another silent background character in their perfect little world. The floor beneath me felt like it was cracking open, and I had to get out of there before I exploded, before I screamed, before I made a scene. I couldn't let them see how badly they'd just humiliated me. They wouldn't care. They never had. So I did the only thing I could do. I quietly slipped out the door, not bothering to say goodbye to anyone, not even Ethan. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. I didn't want them to see me at all. The air outside hit me like a slap in the face, cold and sharp, but it didn't do anything to clear my head. I could feel the heat of anger and humiliation rising in me, mixing with disbelief. I couldn't believe what had just happened. I had spent so long fighting for something, anything, that felt like it mattered. And here they were, taking it all away from me, like it was theirs to give and take, like I had never done a thing to deserve it. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel, but I didn't care. I drove home with the rage bubbling up inside me, a storm that wouldn't be quieted. My mind was racing, replaying everything, but it was all the same. I was invisible, just like always, and this time, I wasn't going to let them pretend they hadn't broken me. The drive home was a blur, a haze of anger and hurt swirling inside me. I kept gripping the steering wheel like I could crush all the years of resentment, but it wasn't going anywhere. It was like a fire was building up in my chest, too hot to ignore. Every turn felt like a punishment, every second stretching on forever as I thought about everything I'd just witnessed. My parents, who should have been the ones to protect me, had shoved me aside, like I wasn't worth the trouble. Ethan, my own brother, the one I'd spent my whole life trying to be seen by, was the star of the show. Sophie, her face full of pity as she glanced at me, made it worse. All of them, standing there, completely oblivious to how much they'd just torn me apart. I slammed the front door behind me when I got inside, not caring how loud it was. The silence that followed felt like a weight, pressing down on my chest. I walked into the living room and collapsed onto the couch, staring at the walls I'd painted, the floors I'd installed, the place I'd made into my sanctuary. It was mine. I'd built it from the ground up with my own 2 hands, piece by piece, and now it was being ripped away from me. I had poured so much of myself into it, and now it was going to belong to someone else, someone who didn't even know the first thing about what I'd given up to make this home. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, pulling me from my thoughts. I picked it up without thinking and saw Ethan's name on the screen. Move out by the end of the week. The message was cold, no emotion. No thank you for the years I'd spent there, for everything I'd done to make that place livable. Just a demand. Like it was nothing, like I was nothing. I felt the blood rush to my face. I knew I should have expected it. They'd made it clear over and over again that I was just a tool for them to use when it was convenient. But this was a slap in the face. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone across the room and smash something, anything to make the anger go away. How could they treat me like this? After all the work, after everything I'd done for them, for that house. And Ethan? Did he even care? Did he even realize how badly he was crushing me? No, of course not. He was too wrapped up in his perfect life, his perfect fiancé, his perfect engagement party, to see the wreckage I was living in. The fire inside me started to burn brighter. I wasn't going to take this anymore. I wasn't going to let them keep using me like this, treating me like I was disposable. They'd taken everything from me, and now they were taking my home. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles white, as I stared at the message. Move out by the end of the week. I wasn't going to just roll over this time. I'd spent too long doing what they wanted, too long waiting for them to see me, to recognize what I'd done, but they never would. They never had. That was the moment I snapped. I wasn't going to play by their rules anymore. I wasn't going to be the one who always gave, always sacrificed, always let them take what they wanted from me. No more. I stood up, pacing in the small living room, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts at once. There had to be a way out, a way to take back what was mine, to make them see how wrong they were, how wrong they'd treated me. I wasn't going to sit quietly while they destroyed me. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. This was it. The breaking point, and I wasn't going to let them win. Not this time. The next morning, I woke up with a single thought. I'm done. I wasn't going to let them take another inch from me. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me one more time. They wanted me out by the end of the week? Fine. I'd be gone by today. I grabbed my phone and called a moving company. I didn't need to explain. The man on the other end just took the details and told me they'd be there in an hour. That was all I needed. I didn't care what it cost. I just wanted out. I wanted to take everything. Everything I'd put my blood, sweat, and money into. The contractors showed up, and I didn't waste time. I told them to remove everything. The fridge, the stove, the countertops, the light fixtures, the floors I'd installed, the paint I'd spent days perfecting. Everything that had made that place feel like mine. They worked fast, their movements efficient, like they'd done this 1,000 times. They didn't ask questions. They just packed up everything, loading it into trucks one piece at a time. By the time they were finished, the apartment was a shell. Empty walls, bare floors. It felt hollow, like something important had been stripped away. But it wasn't my soul they'd taken. No, they'd only taken what was mine, what I'd worked for, what they never valued. I stood there for a moment, staring at the empty space. I thought about the sweat I'd put into every corner, the hours spent measuring and remeasuring, sanding and painting. I thought about all the times I'd stayed up late, working on designs to make it a place that felt like home. And now it was gone, but not in the way they thought. I walked over to the counter where the keys to the apartment sat, still in their small dish. I picked them up and stared at them for a second, then pulled out a piece of paper. I wrote one simple sentence. I've moved out as requested. I folded it, tucked it inside an envelope, and sealed it. I didn't even feel the need to sign my name. They knew exactly who it was from. I called a courier and sent the keys off to my parents. The act itself felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. Finally, I was taking control. The rest of the day was quiet. Too quiet. I kept my phone close, expecting them to call. It didn't take long. The first message came from my mom. "What the hell did you do?" I didn't respond. A few minutes later, my dad called. I let it go to voicemail. His voice sounded sharp, frustrated. "You've really done it this time, Marissa. You can't just take everything and leave like that. We're going to report you to the authorities for damaging the property. You're not getting away with this." I didn't listen to the rest. I didn't need to. I'd heard it all before. They were angry, but I was past caring. They wanted to control everything. Well, not anymore. I ignored their calls. I wasn't going to beg for forgiveness. I wasn't going to listen to their empty threats. This was the only way I could make them see how wrong they were, how they'd treated me like I was invisible for all these years. Then, a final thought struck me. The car. The one I'd lent to them years ago. The one they'd never bothered to return. I had to take that back too. I picked up my phone again, called a tow truck, and arranged for it to be picked up. It was just one more thing they'd taken from me without ever saying thank you. They didn't deserve to keep it. By the time I was done, I felt a strange peace. For the first time in years, I was doing something for myself. No more letting them control my life. No more playing the part of the dutiful daughter who always gave and never took. I wasn't waiting for them to finally notice me anymore. This was my life now. I was taking it back, piece by piece. A few weeks went by in silence. My phone didn't ring with apologies or questions. No one from my family bothered to reach out. I guess they were still seething, still trying to figure out how to twist the situation to make me look like the villain. But I didn't care. I had moved on. One afternoon, I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through old messages, when my cousin Lori called. Her voice was light, but I could tell something was up. "Hey, have you heard? Ethan and Sophie called off their wedding," she said. And I could hear the disbelief in her voice. I felt a small pang of something in my chest. Not sympathy, not guilt, just something else. No, I hadn't heard. What happened? "Well, apparently, Sophie found out about the property thing," Lori explained. "She's pissed. Ethan's been blowing her off, saying it wasn't a big deal, but Sophie's not having it. She's telling anyone who'll listen how messed up your parents were, giving Ethan your apartment like that without even asking." I tried to push down the little flicker of satisfaction that sparked inside me. I didn't want to feel good about their misery. It wasn't my fault. Ethan's actions, his ignorance of everything that mattered to me, that was on him, not me. "I'm not surprised," I said, my voice steady, no trace of guilt. "Sophie's the first one who sees it, I guess. Ethan's too wrapped up in himself to get it." "Yeah," Lori agreed. "But now the wedding's off. I don't know if that'll hold, but, your parents are freaking out. They thought that apartment was going to seal everything for Ethan. They're really not happy with you." I bit my lip but stayed quiet for a moment. They weren't happy with me. Good. That was the point. I don't feel guilty, Lori. Not for a second. Ethan's the one who ruined his relationship. If he hadn't been so blind, none of this would have happened. She was quiet for a second. "Yeah, you're right. It's just hard to see the family unravel like this. I'm done with them," I said. And there was no hesitation in my voice. I'm not part of their show anymore. I'm doing this for me now. I hung up the phone shortly after, feeling a weird sense of clarity. I'd made my choice, and I was moving forward. With the savings from my new place and the freedom I'd given myself, I started to plan. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building a future that wasn't dependent on anyone but me. The more I thought about it, the more excited I became. This was mine, my life, my choices, my rules. No more waiting for recognition, no more hoping they'd see me. I wasn't going to waste another minute trying to prove I was worth it. The weight that had been pressing down on me for years started to lift. I felt lighter than I had in so long. For the first time, I could breathe without wondering what they'd think of me. I could do what I wanted without worrying about their approval. Standing up for myself wasn't easy. It was messy, painful, and it had cost me a lot. But it had also set me free. And for the first time in my life, I was free. Sometimes, the only way forward is to take the step that no one else expects you to. But once you do, you realize it's the only way that matters.